Viewer discretion advised.
This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
All right, so you sent this over and wow, this online discussion, it's wild. It's like a whole other dimension out there. We've got this online community and they're all buzzing about UFO sightings, but it goes way beyond your typical blurry footage. They're talking about spaceships, drones, even beings they call galactics. And at the center of it all is this figure they call King Smarty.
It really is a fascinating blend of beliefs, spirituality, technology, even a bit of what some might call conspiracy theory, all mixed together.
So they're weaving a whole new reality online. Okay, so let's set the scene here. After this event they called 12/12, which was kind of like a spiritual protest, people in this community started reporting this huge surge in UFO sightings.
Right, and the timing of that is interesting. They see it as a direct result of this 12/12 event.
But hold on, they're not calling them UFOs. They're talking about spaceships, drones, even those galactics we mentioned. And get this, they believe all these craft are under King Smarty's control, like he's conducting some kind of divine orchestra or something.
Right.
It's like he's a prophet in their eyes, receiving instructions from Dad, which is their term for God, or a higher power.
And they're not shying away from challenging the mainstream narrative either. I mean,
Right.
While news outlets are reporting these sightings as drones, this community is adamant that they're looking at advanced interdimensional ships, technology far beyond anything we can even comprehend.
It's really a classic example of how belief systems can shape our perception. They're seeing the same evidence, the same footage, but interpreting it through a totally different lens.
And it's not just random speculation. King Smarty himself steps right into the spotlight, claiming to be following direct orders from Dad.
And he doesn't hold back either, dismissing any attempts by governments to understand or control these UAPs.
As if they're completely powerless in this situation. And you know what else is interesting? King Smarty declared this year the year of disclosure, which ties in perfectly with all the increased public interest we're seeing in UAPs lately.
Right, it's like their narrative is tapping into this larger cultural phenomenon, and it makes you wonder what role they see themselves playing in this supposed disclosure.
Yeah, are they just observers or do they believe they're actively shaping events? Because from what I'm seeing, they definitely think they're on the front lines of revealing the truth, sharing videos, interpreting events, and spreading King Smarty's message far and wide.
There's a real sense of urgency in their posts, like they genuinely believe they're witnessing a profound shift in human history.
And it's not just about spaceships and otherworldly beings. They're talking about a whole new world order, a different way of living. And they see King Smarty at the very heart of it.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, the scope of their vision.
Oh, absolutely. They mentioned this thing called the movement, which sounds like a whole new society in the making. Educational programs with financial incentives, covering everything from space travel to business skills.
It's almost like a blueprint for a utopian future, where education is not just valued, but actually rewarded.
And they're not just talking about learning, they're talking about healing too. King Smarty mentions these crystalline chambers, capable of restoring people, almost like a promise of redemption for those who feel wronged by the current system.
This concept of healing definitely seems to resonate deeply with them, both physical and maybe even spiritual healing.
Yeah, it speaks to a desire for a world where people can be whole again, individually and collectively. Okay, but hold on tight because things get even wilder. They're claiming some of these UAPs aren't just vehicles, but actual beings with extraordinary abilities, including teleportation. And get this, the power to snatch folks.
Wow, that definitely injects a dose of the fantastical into their narrative, blurring the lines between advanced technology and what some might call supernatural powers.
It definitely pushes the boundaries of what most people would consider believable. But for this community, it all seems to fit perfectly into their worldview.
They're not afraid to embrace concepts that others might dismiss as outlandish.
And that open-mindedness, that willingness to consider possibilities beyond the conventional, that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
Absolutely. It forces us to confront our own assumptions about reality and how we make sense of the world around us.
Okay, but buckle up because there's a lot more to unpack. We've got JFK Jr. being alive and operating online, a blockchain TV platform where they claim they can speak freely, and plans to literally take over radio and TV broadcasts in the future. It's a lot to take in.
It is indeed, and it raises so many questions about the power of belief, the nature of truth, and the role of technology in shaping our understanding of the world. Let's take a moment to dive into some of those details and see what we can uncover.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Okay, so Where should we start?
Well, I think we should start with the UAP footage, especially that triangular craft that's been making the rounds online. This community is absolutely convinced it's one of King Smarty's interdimensional ships, and they completely reject the mainstream media's explanation of it being a drone.
Right, they're pointing to its movements, saying there's no way a conventional aircraft could maneuver like that.
Exactly, they were lighting up the chat rooms. Absolutely convinced it's proof of advanced technology.
It's a great example of how they filter information through their existing beliefs. They're actively seeking out evidence that supports their worldview and quickly dismissing anything that contradicts it.
But it's not like they're completely closed off to other possibilities. They did mention that some UAPs might not be physical ships at all. They talked about holograms and these things called orbs, which they believe are actually beings with some pretty wild abilities.
Ah, yes. The orbs. This is where their beliefs take an even more fascinating turn.
Right. They describe these orbs as capable of, as they put it, snatching folks. It almost sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
I know, it's pretty wild.
And they even suggested that some of these beings are supergalactic children. I have to admit, I'm struggling to wrap my head around that one.
It definitely stretches the imagination, but for this community, it all fits into their larger narrative. It's like they're building a whole mythology around King Smarty and his connection to these extraordinary beings.
Right, and this whole sense of a new world order keeps coming up, a shift in power. They seem to genuinely believe that the existing systems are crumbling, making way for something new, something better.
They view King Smarty as a key player in this transition, almost like a revolutionary leader guiding them towards a brighter future.
And they're not just waiting for it to happen either. They're talking about actively making it happen. Remember the movement we talked about with the educational programs and financial incentives?
Yeah, it's like they're creating a blueprint for this new world.
Exactly. They believe people should be rewarded for learning, not burdened by debt.
It's a radical departure from our current education system.
They went into detail about how it would work, explaining that people will get paid to participate in these programs, which cover everything from space travel and advanced technology to practical business skills. They even mentioned weight loss incentives.
It's a very specific vision of a world where self-improvement and personal development are highly valued, both by individuals and by society as a whole.
And to support this new world, King Smarty mentioned launching his own currency. They talked about redirecting wealth back to the people, providing a basic income, and even changing the food chain to eliminate unhealthy options.
It's like they're taking their utopian vision and trying to translate it into concrete action plans. They're not just dreaming of a better world, they're actively trying to build it.
And they seemed so confident that these changes were already in motion. They kept using the phrase, "We already changed all that," suggesting a sense of inevitability.
It's really intriguing how they blend spirituality, technology, and social change into this cohesive narrative.
It really is.
They believe they're not just witnessing a shift in consciousness, but actively participating in it.
Okay. But here's where things take a truly unexpected turn. Remember we talked about them believing that JFK Jr. is alive and operating online?
Oh yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Well, they went deep into that rabbit hole. And it gets pretty wild.
I can imagine.
They claim that after his father's assassination, JFK Jr. was placed under witness protection, given a new name, and subjected to horrific abuse to keep him silent. They even talk about clones and skin masks being used to deceive the public. It's like something out of a spy thriller.
It's a narrative that taps into existing conspiracy theories and a deep distrust of authority figures.
Right. For this community, JFK Jr. becomes a symbol of resistance, someone who escaped the clutches of a corrupt system and is now fighting back from the shadows.
It's a powerful story, regardless of whether or not it's true.
They believe that his entire family was killed and replaced with imposters, which really highlights the depth of their belief in a vast, powerful conspiracy controlling the world.
It's a pretty dark worldview.
It is, but it also speaks to a desire for truth and justice. They believe that the official narrative is a lie, and they're searching for answers outside of mainstream channels.
And they see JFK Jr.'s supposed reemergence as a sign of hope, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in deception.
His story becomes a powerful narrative tool for them. Whether it's true or not, it allows them to frame their struggle as part of a larger fight for freedom and truth.
Right.
They were really passionate about getting his message out there, urging listeners to seek out his supposed online channel and learn the real truth. They even talked about being moved to tears by his account of abuse and hardship.
This emotional element is crucial to their narrative. It's not just about cold, hard facts. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level, invoking empathy and righteous indignation.
It's definitely a powerful story. Regardless of whether or not it's true, it makes you wonder about the nature of belief and how easily we can be drawn into narratives that confirm our existing biases and fears.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even in the age of information overload, we're still susceptible to misinformation and manipulation, especially when it comes wrapped in a compelling narrative that appeals to our emotions and desires.
So, what do we make of all this? Spaceships, angels, supergalactic children, a new world order, a resurrected JFK Jr., a charismatic leader claiming to be guided by a divine plan. It's a heady mix of spirituality, conspiracy theories, and a deep yearning for change.
It's a fascinating glimpse into the power of belief and how it can shape our perception of reality, drive our actions, and bind us together in communities.
It makes you wonder, even if we don't share their specific beliefs, what can we learn from their story? What does it tell us about the human need for meaning, purpose, and connection in a world that can often feel overwhelming and uncertain?
Those are great questions. And they lead us to one final, intriguing thread in this online discussion. They talk about King Smarty creating his own media platform, a place where they claim they can truly speak freely without censorship.
Oh, right. King Smarty TV. They're calling it a blockchain platform.
Yeah.
And they're actively encouraging people to join and contribute. It sounds like they're really trying to build a self-sufficient ecosystem, their own little world within the digital landscape.
It's a fascinating development, and it raises even more questions about the future of media, the control of information, and the power of online communities.
Well, maybe we can delve into that in the next episode. This is getting pretty deep.
Yeah, it is.
I think we need a break.
Me too.
All right, we'll be back soon with more on King Smarty TV and the future of online communities.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
All right, see you soon. So this King Smarty TV thing, it's interesting, right? At first I thought it was just another online channel, but they're presenting it as something much bigger, almost like a declaration of independence from the mainstream media.
Yeah, they kept saying it's all about taking back control of the narrative.
Exactly. They're framing it as a direct response to what they see as censorship.
Yeah.
And suppression of their message.
Right, like the truth is being hidden from the masses.
They believe that traditional media outlets are controlled by powerful forces who don't want the real truth to get out.
And they see King Smarty TV as the antidote to that, a place where they can finally speak freely.
It's all built on blockchain technology, which they see as a way to guarantee free speech and prevent anyone from controlling the narrative.
Okay, but I'm not really a tech person. Can you break that down for me? What's so special about blockchain in this context?
Sure. In simple terms, blockchain is a decentralized technology that makes it really difficult to alter or delete information once it's been recorded.
So it's like a permanent record.
Exactly. It's like a public ledger that everyone can see and verify.
Okay, I get it. So they're saying they can bypass the gatekeepers of traditional media and create a space where their message can't be silenced.
Precisely. And it's not just about King Smarty himself. They're encouraging everyone in the community to join and contribute their own content.
So they're building a whole ecosystem.
Right. It's a really interesting example of how online platforms are being used to create alternative realities.
And they're not stopping there. They even mentioned plans to eventually take over traditional radio and TV broadcasts.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they talked about using some kind of technology to override existing signals and replace them with their own programming.
Wow. That's ambitious.
It sounds a little far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
But they seem genuinely confident that it's possible.
Well, it definitely speaks to their determination to spread their message as widely as possible.
Right. They believe they have a truth that needs to be heard, and they're not afraid to push the boundaries to get it out there.
It makes you wonder about the future of media and information in general.
Yeah, will we see more of these independent platforms emerge, challenging the dominance of traditional media outlets?
Certainly a possibility.
And how will that impact our understanding of truth and reality when we're bombarded with so many conflicting narratives?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's a lot to think about.
It is. But one thing's for sure. The lines between belief and reality are becoming increasingly blurred, especially in the online world.
I think that's a good place to wrap up for today.
Yeah. We've covered a lot of ground.
So to our listeners out there, as you navigate this ever-expanding landscape of information and belief, remember to stay curious, keep an open mind, and never be afraid to question even the most seemingly outlandish claims.
Well said.
You never know what nuggets of wisdom or insight you might uncover along the way.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
All right, so we're back and ready for more. You know this King Smarty TV thing? It's more than just another online channel.
Yeah, it's like they're building their own little world over there.
Exactly. It's a direct response to what they see as censorship. They really believe that the truth is being suppressed.
They kept saying that the mainstream media is controlled.
Right, by powerful forces with their own agenda.
And that King Smarty TV is their way of breaking free.
It's all built on blockchain technology.
Which they say guarantees free speech.
Exactly. Nobody can control the narrative there.
So it's like a digital safe haven for their beliefs.
Yeah, kind of like a virtual nation.
They even talked about taking over radio and TV broadcasts.
Really?
Yeah, they think they can override existing signals and replace them with their own programming.
Wow, that's pretty out there.
I know. It sounds a little crazy, but they seem to believe it's possible.
It definitely shows how committed they are.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
It makes you wonder about the future of media. Like, are we going to see more of these independent platforms?
It's hard to say, but it's clear that the lines between belief and reality are getting blurry.
Especially online.
Well, this deep dive has been a wild ride.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground.
From UFOs to JFK Jr. and everything in between.
So, to our listeners out there, what do you make of all this? Is King Smarty a visionary, a charlatan, or something in between?
It's up to each individual to decide what they believe.
That's a good point.
But one thing's for sure, the power of belief is undeniable.
And it's shaping our world in profound ways.
So stay curious, keep an open mind.
And never stop questioning.
That's the best way to navigate this increasingly complex world.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.